this and see. Okay, all right. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the Tuesday evening show, the Diana Wright Show live, and our special guest is Dr. Melanie, when we kind of do some X-rated stuff, when we talk about everything that parents don't want to talk to their children about, and adults don't seem to want to engage in. So, we're going to welcome Dr. Melanie to the show, but before we do, just reminding you that April 30th is just around the corner. It's next week, Tuesday. So you got to let everyone know it's International I Love Me Day, created by the Diana Wright Show. And we're asking you to go online, buy up the t-shirts, and then next year, if you didn't buy a t-shirt this year, next year you have to buy one, because everyone from around the world and in the United States, we're going to require you to have that shirt on for that day. That celebration, okay? Because it is a celebration of you, yourself. You're the only one that's responsible for your own happiness, your own joy, your own peace, and your own love. And easiest way to start is to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, lots of things come your way that you can't handle. Negative people, friends who are crazy, crazy men if you're a woman, and crazy female if you are a male. So you're just going to love yourself and kind of settle the dust, okay? And don't be afraid and be embarrassed for loving yourself, because it is the right thing to do. A lot of people feel, oh, you know, I will be seen like I'm too cocky if I love myself. No. You're supposed to love yourself, okay? It is important for you to do that. And don't forget the great things that love can actually do for you. It helps you when you love yourself. It's easier for you to receive love from someone else. You don't seem so desperate trying to find love for yourself. You just relax and make it happen. All right? So as we welcome Dr. Melanie to the program, we thank you for joining us. Hey, Dr. Melanie, there you are.
Hi, how's everybody?
All righty. So there you are, and we're going to start off right away into some deep water. I went on to, actually I was watching the History Channel, and I was watching the research done by the Kinsey Institute, and they have done a lot of studies on sexuality and how people have sex and how they don't have sex, and who's satisfied from who's not satisfied. And they go through the Indiana University, but they're a non-profit entity that just deals with sexuality and anything to do with sex. Okay, so one of the things I saw on there when I was watching the program, actually last Tuesday after I signed off from you, that was what was coming on. And they were talking about the fact that older people are not practicing safe sex. They're practicing less safe sex than young people. And I kind of went, what? So I know I heard, and I went back and I looked at some surveys that came out of Florida in particular, where older people were getting lots of STDs because, I guess, what is it? They feel that they're old now so they don't have to protect themselves, or what? What is it? Please enlighten us.
You know what's amazing? I had this conversation with a patient today.
Oh no! I am in your office, on your walls, and I am the ant.
So I feel, Miss Diana, with all due respect, like you're a fly on my wall.
I'm serious. I'm sorry. And I confess. See, I wrote this down from last week. When you and I got off the air, I went in my room, and there you go. It was on the History Channel, and boom, that's what they're talking about. The Kinsey Institute.
Yes.
See? So you know I'm not lying. This is written down. This is my normal copy, holding it up for the camera to see. So, see, I made sure I carried these jottings because I keep these by my bedside, and anything that's, good, I write it down to ask you next week or something.
That's very good. But what I wanted to say is, it's so true. A lot of older people are all of a sudden finding themselves in terms of their sexuality. It doesn't mean that they didn't know who they were all these years, but for some reason, especially those who are in nursing homes, they're finding that they desire more companionship than in prior years. In many cases, they don't have family members really visiting with them, and so, they're looking for that attention that ability to socialize, and there might be some man there or some woman there that piques their interest, and all of a sudden they develop a relationship, and the next thing you know, the bedroom becomes a part of the relationship that's developed.
But why are they not practicing safe sex, though? They're worse than young people. That's what the History Channel was telling me.
It's very true. And for some of them, their response to this is exactly what you said. I've lived my life. I know what life is about. I don't have that many years left. And whatever time span I have left, I'm going to enjoy myself in whatever shape or form. And then there's some of them that they'll share with you with a bit of excitement. Oh my goodness, I never knew it was good like this. It's been years, and this you'd be amazed. You would be amazed at the stories.
Yeah, because I guess now they're not thinking about getting pregnant. Their inhibitions are gone, so they're more relaxed, I guess. Wow.
Exactly. And one of the number one STDs among a lot of elderly patients is syphilis, believe it or not.
Syphilis? Wow. That's actually coming back.
And a lot of the reason why that is a lot of these people from previous, like, for example, there's some men, that I've dealt with in the past as patients where they'll tell you there was a point when they were kind of out there. A lot of them were servicemen, and, they would have different stops depending on where they were stationed. And so they would have these short-term, not really relationships, but they
kind of a sex thing.
Visit with women, and they would have, intimate exchange with these people. And the next thing you know, years down the line, they start having mental status changes. So you're thinking, maybe Alzheimer's is setting in or dementia. And all of a sudden, you discover the patient has syphilis, and that's the reason for some of the cognitive deficits that they do have.
Wow. So, this is shocking for me because, I think most people, especially younger people, believe that when people get older, they're not having any sex. Okay? Or if if they're having it, it's not, very often kind of thing. I'm serious, because even kids look at their parents and go, or your grandparents or whatever. But then when I saw this report, I'm going, what?
Well, as one of the patients shared with me many years ago while I was a medical student, if I'm not dead, it's not dead.
Okay.
So there's some men that even though they might have erectile dysfunction and not be able to have an erection, they really don't care what route they have to take, what herb they have to try, whether or not they're going to be on Cialis or Levitra or Viagra or whatever the case might be. One man told me, if I can die in that position happy, I'm okay. Because at least I would have been happy. And I'm thinking, well, at this point, you're dead. And you're in the bed with this person, and I think it's a little bit more scary of what they might be thinking. I don't think they're going to be thinking about whatever pleasurable experience was taking place or took place. At that point, their focus is very different. So
exactly. Okay, my special guest, Dr. Melanie. It's Tuesday. It's the 8 o'clock hour of the Diana Wright Show, and we are talking about sex and sexuality. And we've started off by talking about elderly people, older people who most of us believe are not really having sex, but they're having more sex than young people, and they're having not so safe sex. So they're ending up with a lot of the STDs. So we welcome you from around the world and in the United States. Thank you so much for joining us. And we continue now, because one of the other things they said in the report is that oral sex is becoming more popular than penetration. Wow. And the frequency of sex among the elderly is more. So
in response to that, this is just so interesting, but in response to that, one of the things that a lot of the older population would say to you is there are things that they had fantasized about years ago that were complete taboo, that they kind of are willing to embrace now at this stage of their lives. And so if somebody is willing to go down that road with them, that take that journey with them, then they're willing to do that. Because like you said, there's a lot of like inhibitions that they might have had a long time ago, and now they're at the point where they just want to be free, they just want to be open, they just want to live their lives. And so for some of these people, oral sex is a big fantasy that a lot of these people have. It's amazing to even think, you know, of your grandparents kind of doing
your grandparents having sex. Can you imagine?
Sex is what brought, and some people are willing to embrace the different art forms of sex. But in a lot of these older people, they just feel within themselves that their peak of sexuality has arrived, and whatever is out there that they can explore safely, it's something that they're willing to try.
Wow. Oh my goodness. This is so interesting. Okay, there's something else I wanted to bring up that I saw on the report. It spoke about boys, 79% of boys are more likely to use a condom than the girls wanting to use a condom. I found that a little hard to believe, because I would have thought that it's the girls that want to protect themselves from getting pregnant. So,
well, in response to that, you know, when I have conversations with teenagers and young adults and, you know, adults alike, a lot of times they'll tell you it takes away from the fun.
Takes away from the fun?
There's a protective barrier. That's what a lot of them will say to you. You know, I don't have as much fun because I can't feel her skin against my skin, or I can't feel his skin against my skin, and so that takes away from the whole idea of why we got together in this fashion in the first place.
Right.
And a lot of the gentlemen or you know, boys now are saying to themselves, well, I might be going around the block sleeping around, but I really would like to find that special woman. And I would like to save myself for that special woman. And so if they have to use protective barriers, now they'll say, well, that's not a big deal as long as I can get some, is how some people phrase it, which is very sad. But as long as I'm able to still engage in activity, it doesn't matter if I have to wear a condom. But with the girls, they have kind of the opposite feeling, and I don't know exactly why. Because number one, if you're not a responsible adult, you should not be engaging in adult behavior to begin with. Number two, really, sex was created for the idea of marriage.
Exactly.
However, these days, a lot of people have that feeling, which is, like we talked about before, it's my body, I'm going to do what I want. But then later on, down the years, as they get older, all of, I guess you'd call it the closet sins, I think you would call it that. But all of these things start to manifest as they get older, you know. And so when you have to look at a patient and say, well, you know, now you have, you know, let's say hepatitis, or you have HIV, or you have herpes, or you have syphilis, or you have gonorrhea, and all the rest alike, then they look at you and they say, well, and you say to yourself, can you go back in your sexual history and tell me how many partners have you had?
Right.
And that's where men and women alike will say, to be honest with you, I don't even really know.
Excuse me?
That's very sad, but that's something that I'm finding to be very common, where they cannot give you a number, so to speak, on the number of partners they had. And in women, they tell you now, you have to actually double whatever they tell you, because chances are there are more partners than they really are telling you about.
Yeah, but isn't sex one of those things that's so personal that you should actually really know and remember where and when and how it happened in your life? Seriously.
It should be very personal, but now it's like a public display of affection, according to some people, because, like you know, previously sex was confined in many cases to the bedroom.
Right.
Now there are people at, you know, on the airplane, there are people that are in the movie theater, there are people outside in their car, there are people on the beach. So people have just made sex a very public kind of affair. And so a lot of people don't have that sacred, intense, you know, what you'd call expression of a beautiful romantic love, where, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to be confined to the bedroom if you're in that, you know, perfect so-called situation, but it should still be private enough where both parties feel satisfied, feel appreciated, but at the same time, the whole world doesn't have to view the fact that you're enjoying each other. I mean, they really don't.
But, you know, I guess that leads me into infidelity, because isn't it so, they also spoke about that too, infidelity kind of creates a problem in a marital situation, or even if someone is not married and they're significant other or whatever, once there's infidelity, doesn't that actually take away that, okay, I guess someone called Dr. Melanie on her phone, so she got blacked out. Oh, there she is now. Okay. If someone, you know, does that, because this is one of the things they talked about, infidelity, and how it creates a barrier. When you then have sex with that person again, it can never be the same. So, hence you have a distrust, and men will say, oh, well, I really didn't love her, it just was about sex. So, you know, how do you even believe that? Can it just be, for guys, just about sex?
Can I tell you, for some women, it is just about that too.
Oh.
There are many women who I have encountered who will tell you, well, I just need him for one thing only, and that's it.
What?
And say, well, what about the emotional ties that you form with that individual? And they'll tell me, you know, well, I mean, guys do it, so why not, you know, why can't it be something that's accepted for women to do the same thing? And what I try to express to my patients, or even just friends who, you know, come up with these crazy ideas, I say to them, at the end of the day, you want to feel valued. You should want to feel valued. If you don't want to feel valued, then that's an issue. And a lot of times, you know, they'll say, well, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. Everybody, you know, gives these guys credit when they sleep around, and when a woman does it, you know, there's just this thing that society brings about where, you know, they start to call her all kinds of names, and, you know, very derogatory kind of descriptions that are given to a lot of these women. But infidelity is basically based on mistrust. So if you don't understand who you are as a person and what your value is, then somebody might go around and have an affair on you, or cheat on you, as they would say, and you take them back. So you continue to invite that individual into your personal space and also into your bed, irrespective of their behavior. So in other words, there's no consequence for the behavior, because the behavior
Okay, we're breaking up a little bit there. I don't know why. Go ahead, Dr. Melanie. Oops. I don't know why you're blotting out a lot tonight. You want to try to come right back in? I think I have a feeling if someone is calling you, that means it's going to drop your call out. So I'm going to take that down and just come back to myself until Dr. Melanie comes back on. We're talking about sexuality and older people having sex, people having too much sex, people are not connecting properly, because sex, as we should know it, should be a personal, intimate situation, but we're finding out from Dr. Melanie that women are, you know, just saying, okay, the guys can do it, why can't I do it too? But is that really the way that we want to go down with all of this? Or is it just that the world is becoming so free and so open, and, you know, everything seems so easy that it's okay to do this? So, anyway, you're tuned to the Diana Wright Show live online, and it's the 8 o'clock hour of the show. Our special guest is Dr. Melanie. We're having a little difficulty with her and her Skype connection, but we'll see if she comes back to us. And I just wanted to point out to you that I found something out today about the fact that women actually use both sides of their brains to listen. So hence, when your husband or your partner does not listen to you, don't get upset, because that person is not able to listen the way you listen. All right, so we're trying to let men be like women, and they really can't, and that's the reason, I guess, when I heard the father of the young man. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, Dr. Melanie. Let's see. I'm not seeing you though. Are you able to hear me? There you go. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Let's put you back up, and we can continue our conversation here. All right. I wanted to. I was talking a little bit about women listening from both sides of their brain, as opposed to men who listen to one side of their brain. So when women are upset that men are not listening the same way they do, we shouldn't be, because that's just the nature of their brain, that we use both sides and they use one to listen. So I was just getting into that while you were off. But anyway, let's get back to our conversation about cheating and future sexual encounters with whether your husband, your significant other, your boyfriend, or whatever you call them. It's the same thing. It's the same emotion that we're dealing with. Are you able to then reconnect with that person without, in your mind and your imagination, thinking of them with someone else?
You know what? If you're able to do that, more power to you. I believe infidelity in general, distance in the relationship, no matter how close, wanting to pursue.
Okay, why are we getting that ghosty look of you? We don't want that. Not at all. We don't want you to look like that. So I'm gonna take that shot down until we sort it out. You're a little out of focus, so try to focus yourself a little bit, and then we will go back. Yeah, you're still ghosty, and I don't know why. Anyway, I'll just continue. Oh, there you go. Okay, let me bring you back up. All right, no more ghosts for the rest of the night. Okay, go ahead. So you're saying that if someone can actually live with that, it's okay.
Right. If you have, kind of researched the situation and looked at it from all angles and say to yourself, I'm okay with this individual having stepped outside the relationship to satisfy themselves, whether they actually went as far as sexual intimacy or not. That's a different story, because you may not necessarily go that far, but in your mind you may have already had intercourse with that individual without actually going that far.
Okay.
But, so that's something else to consider. And a lot of times people will have these feelings inside of them kind of bubbling, but they may not necessarily express them outwardly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So if put it this way, if you start seeing behavioral changes in the relationship, like, previously he was very excited about certain conversations you would have, and all of a sudden he's not as excited, or her behavior has changed, or his kiss has changed, or her kiss has changed, or the perfume has changed, or all of a sudden...
Okay, the perfume, that's a dead giveaway.
You have to pay attention to everything.
Okay.
Because the side to it could be somebody else that they're familiar with, especially for women, not so much the men, that they're familiar with might be going through a challenge in their relationship with infidelity. And so now she starts moving things in gear and saying, well, I don't want to be in that predicament. So you know what? Let me make sure my hair is right, my nails and my toes are done, and let me make sure that I look my very best so that I keep him attracted to me only.
Okay. All right. So...
And women, eyes were put in our heads to look outward. It doesn't mean that while you're looking outward, your brain has to be going outward into wanting to be a part of an intimate relationship with another individual. But your eyes are there to look. The first thing we pay attention to is how the person looks.
Okay, yeah, looking is important, That's a first impression. People, before you open your mouth, before they can find out how intelligent you are, they look at you, okay? Oh, and there was a question about that, saying that women should not, here it is, when you're out with your loved one and they're looking at another woman, you should not get offended, because as a man, it's something that they're going to do.
Yes.
Is that
and that's
correct?
what I'm saying. Don't take it to heart. Sometimes women, if you see your man turns his head, or man, if you see your woman, your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other turn their head, sometimes you should really be in a place where you think of it as a compliment.
Oh.
Because it's okay that another man is looking at the person you have.
Wow.
But if lusting in their mind after that individual, that's kind of where the issues come in. But it's okay for them to look. There's nothing wrong with them looking. That should make you feel good and step up your self-confidence, because if you can turn somebody's head, that's a good thing.
Okay, so it says here, because these were the questions I had for you. This is a thing where they gave some things about women and men. Women use both sides of their brain, and then they said women should watch out. If a man is looking at another woman, don't be upset, because it's just how their brain works. Simple.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you know, when you get your hair done as a woman and you have a significant other, you're hoping he pays attention enough to see your hair. Yes, you might have made a nice dinner, and I mean, the way to a man's, you know, heart, as they would say, is through his stomach. Well, while you're looking at the food that's prepared, I would hope you take notice of the hair at the same time. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's kind of, we have to look at the fact that men are busy using the side of their brain that's very much connected to their eyesight, whereas with women, we're thinkers. So we are looking, but we're also thinking. And many times, how do you think women find their husbands or boyfriends or significant others? It's because they're looking at the person and they start imagining, if you will, in their minds, what would it be like to be on a date with that individual? What would it be like to be married to them? A man is not thinking of all of that. I'm so sorry. He's busy wondering, okay, how long is it going to take before this relationship gets to the next level? It doesn't necessarily
to the sex part.
They're thinking some kind of physical connection in many, many cases.
Okay. Wow. Alrighty. Well, you know, hey, that's how it works. That's how it works. I want to welcome you once again to the Diana Wright Show live online. Whether you're around the world or you're in the United States, we thank you so much for joining us. My special guest is Dr. Melanie, and she's from the West Palm Beach Family Doctors, Inc. Her number 561-434-5678. That's 561-434-5678. And if you'd like to give her a call here while she's on the show to ask your own question, because I'm getting all my questions from the the Kinsey Institute, which is part of Indiana University, and they are always experimenting about sex and sexuality. They spoke next, I guess I'm going to move now to newlyweds. They talked about the fact that when people are newlyweds, they don't necessarily connect and are satisfied sexually. So, as a doctor, how do you approach something like that? If a newlywed couple comes to you and they're like not connecting because this is their first time together, we hope it is, how do you kind of counsel them through that process? Do they necessarily have to go find a sex therapist or something?
If necessary. But what I say to them is, you know, understand who you are and understand what you want. If this is, let's say, their initial, so both people are virgins and they have no idea what they're doing.
Yes.
Can I tell you, it is so easy to get a book. There's so many ways that you can learn about how to entertain each other in the context of the bedroom. Okay. And a lot of times people will say, well, you know, I don't want to go to the library, and I didn't say get a dirty DVD. Sex is not, I'm so sorry to tell you people, sex is not a dirty thing.
No, it's not. Well, it's not supposed to be. We've kind of gotten it there, but it's not supposed to be.
If you're getting if you're getting money for sex or some kind of exchange for sex, then that's a whole different territory.
Right.
Explore. But if you are in a relationship with someone, in this case, you're newlywed, you want to please your husband, you want to please your wife, there's nothing wrong with learning together. I mean, that's the most beautiful thing, when both people are virgins and they're going to learn together. Because if one person comes and they're extremely sexually experienced and the other person has no idea what's going on, that will bring frustration. Because then he or she might be in the bedroom going, are you serious? Like, I guess this person really was serious when they said they don't know what to do.
Right.
So now you have to be the person that teaches them what you know, what things you enjoy. But all you have to do is make sex fun for each other. Talk about the things that you'd like to do You know what I mean? Be creative in your mind. Like we said, use your imagination. Once you use your imagination, eventually it will manifest exactly what it is that you want in that sexual encounter. And unless you're willing to be open, nobody at the end of the day will be a happy
camper. Okay. So basically then, a lot of people who are thinking, oh, I don't want to really say what I want because maybe that will turn the person off. It's actually supposed to be an experience that you actually discuss this.
It is. It's necessary to, if you can talk about money, and you can talk about how many children you'd like, and you can talk about what kind of car you guys are going out to buy, and if you can talk about where you would like to live and what kind of house you want to have, and what kind of business ventures you want to pursue, and where you want to go on vacation, why not talk about one of the most intimate, important aspects of the relationship, and that's your sexual experience? Why not talk about it? It's like any other subject. Maybe a little bit more interesting of a subject, but it's just like another subject. You know?
Okay, so basically, newlyweds, take our advice here. That should be part of your conversation when you do talk. And I think most people would probably be guilty of that, not being able to just discuss this openly, because they're wondering, the guy's going to go find somebody else, or on the, the part of women, and the men are going to kind of feel emasculated, because sexuality is something that people just don't want to talk about. And I wonder why, because we all got here because of sex. So I just wonder why people are so resistant. And the Kinsey Institute kind of lets you know that this is reality. That's how it is. And they specifically go out and get these people to experiment and do all these things. I actually saw them in a lab with young men and young women. This is the experiment. Just kind of imagine this. So they put them in a room, and they're able to use some light or another to see them from outside. So when they're in the room, they're expecting that people will eventually talk and touch and whatever. And actually, they didn't. But they compared it to the experiment that they did, say 30 years ago. And in that experiment, people were touching more. People were getting together more. And then they said, okay, we know the reason for this. Nowadays, people are more not likely to touch because somebody's going to sue you for sexual harassment or, that kind of thing. And that's the reason why young people now seem to be programmed. If they're together in a group, no one is willing to touchy-feely kind of thing anymore because of this. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know necessarily that for the sake of, per se, sexual harassment that people are really concerned about in many cases. But I think it's just the idea of how society look at you. So, even though they're your friends or colleagues or coworkers or whatever the case might be, for some reason, there's that part of you that says, even though at this current moment, I would love to be in a position where I can be free to express myself with this person that I care about, even doing footsies under the table or whatever the case might be. It's one of those things where people
under the table.
It's true. People start to feel very uncomfortable, and it doesn't make sense because I'm thinking, if you're sitting, whether you're sitting in church, you're sitting at the restaurant or wherever, that warm embrace that you might give that person, just putting your arm around that person, just resting your hand on their lap, it's just terms of endearment. It's just your way of saying, even though we're in a group setting, I'm acknowledging that I'm connecting with you.
Okay, connecting with you. Okay, let's talk about something that they talked about on the show. Frequency of sex. Some married people would make you think, or significant other people living together, whatever, shacking up, whatever they call it these days. I'm not even quite sure because everything has gotten so advanced you can't even catch up. Okay? Some people would make you think that they're having sex very often, but in your experience as a doctor, how often are we really having sex?
One person told as often as they can get it. Are you okay?
Yes, I am. I'm laughing too much.
Oh, okay. One person told me as often as they can get it. Another individual said to me, every chance they're awake. And I'm thinking, well, if you're awake 18 hours in a day, how many opportunities within that 18 hours are you going to engage? But the number that seems to stand out for most people is at least 3 times per week.
3 times per week? Oh my goodness. I'm serious. 3 times per week with all the housework and the children and everything, they're finding time to have sex 3 times a week?
Yes. The most I've heard so far is 5 times in a week.
Wow.
But
that's a very busy couple. Are they just together by themselves without any children?
There are multiple children present.
Wow. Okay.
One of the things that a lot of people say is, they'll have date nights. So a lot of couples have date nights, which I think is very, very good. And
that's a good thing. Date nights.
Because everybody needs time away, just by yourself as a couple. And so a lot of times what couples will do is, they'll leave the children with the friends, or they'll have the babysitter or some relative or whoever, and they'll spend time together. And in spending time together, in both their brains, they're thinking, well, here's an opportunity to have some fun. And so we're not just going to sit and talk. We're not just going to go to the restaurant, but we are going to go all the way for the full experience because we waited for this day to come. And so what Tuesday to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever day you choose, these people have made up in their minds that we are going to intimately engage each other in a physical way at least once a week or once per day. Then there are some couples who will tell you, oh, I have sex all the time. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And they'll say, well, any given session, as some people call it, will be 2 or 3 rounds before the day is up. So, I mean, there are people that are having...
I think some of those couples are lying, okay? All right. Join the conversation here with us. It's 561-228-1921. That's 561-228-1921. If you'd like to join the conversation, ask us a question of Dr. Melanie about the sexual experience and escapades of married people who are saying they're having sex 5 times a week. I don't believe that. But anyway, we give them the benefit of the doubt. 3 times a week seems a little more logical to me, because I can visualize that, seeing that happen 3 times a week. But the 5 times a week thing, I'm not feeling that. I just think that, first of all, especially if you're married to someone who is not at your age, or there's a disparity in age or something, how did you equate that?
Well, here's the thing. The usually older individual in relationships like that are usually the men. And these older men love Viagra. They love Cialis. One person shared with me that they actually took a pill, but they had no one to do what they wanted to do with. And so they were in a lot of discomfort for many hours.
Wow. Yeah, but they spend so much time though talking about Cialis and Viagra and all those things. Do those things actually? Okay, there you go again. Let's bring this down. Okay, all right. They spend so much time, because when you're in your car, you're listening to the radio, all they talk about is Cialis. How large we can make the man's penis. Oh, these ads, they just drive you crazy. Is that all the world is thinking about? I'm going in my car going, okay, I don't want to hear any more of this. Boom, to another station. And then you go to the next station, and there you go again, Cialis. I'm like, this is the way to get Viagra cheaper than you're paying now. Or, what is this obsession with older men?
Well, can I tell you?
Yes, please do.
It doesn't mean because they're older means they're dead. And in many cases, their sex drive, even though their testosterone levels are going down, their sex drive seems to increase even further as they get older.
What?
Whereas women in many cases, or sex drive, you know, it just kind of goes down and kind of peaks a little bit. But with men, they don't care. That's why men at 70 can still have children from a woman who's in her 20s or 30s or whatever the case might be, because they're still able to have fun, and that's what they're looking at it as. They're saying, I'm not too old to do what I need to do, and as long as I'm able to do what I can do and have fun, and at the same time please the other individual and please myself, then I'm okay with it.
Okay, they're okay with it. Well, I guess so. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about something that they brought up on the experiments that they do on the Kinsey report. They spoke about alcohol and how it affects you getting in the mood to have sex. I just can't imagine how that works, but because I think when you drink, you're altered. So how does that affect your having a better time? They were saying that, or some people don't necessarily have a better time, but people have less inhibitions when they take a little wine here or whatever they drink. So let's hear your take on that.
Well, with regards to alcohol consumption, whether it's wine or, you know, strong drink or whatever the case might be, it's exactly that. Your inhibitions fall to the ground, fall under the bed, fall under the chair, wherever.
Okay,
because
so you get tipsy then.
That's it. That's it. In many cases, there's some people who the only way that they're able to engage in sexual intimacy, they must be drunk. There are some people that will tell you that.
Really?
And there's some thinking, how can you have fun or remember really the experience or really enjoy the experience in its full capacity if you are under the influence? Not only that, alcohol is a CNS or central nervous system depressant. So obviously your brain is not the other brain might be functioning a little bit, but your true brain is not really functioning the way it should because you are not able to think clearly. That's why they say don't drink and drive. Well, in many cases, you might want to tell some people don't drink and have sex because it's not going to be as fun in many cases. And there's some people, they think, well, she's too intense or he's too intense and I just want them to loosen up a little, so I'm going to drink. But if it becomes a dependent state where every time you want to be intimate, there has to be a little bit of alcohol there, that's something to look into, because for some men, eventually, it can cause erectile dysfunction.
Really? The alcohol affects their ability to have an erection?
Not necessarily that it affects their ability, but their focus in many cases goes down because of the fact that now they start to get sleepy. Because if you think about it, when people, I mean, some of us have never tried alcohol and some of us might have tried it in moderate amounts.
Yes.
But as you become more intoxicated, your ability to function 100%, because your body starts to shut down. Your body at that point wants to relax. So you may still be aroused and do everything that goes with that, but it may not be the most unbelievable experience, if you will, because of the fact that you're intoxicated or inebriated in some cases.
Okay, let's one of the things they try to do on the show is ask what is your definition of sex? Because some people believe that if you have oral sex, it's not exactly sex, but you know, you have to penetrate before you say you actually have sex. So, which activities people include based on their culture? This is one of the questions that were asked in the entire experiment that what they were doing. And this is strictly based on culture.
Okay. So, just the overall definition of sex? Is
yes.
That what the question was? So, when you think of sex, you can think of it as the ability to express on an intimate level or in an intimate setting what your brain or what your body is feeling at that moment. So, like I was saying before, you know, to have an orgasm, we went through all the stages of the sexual cycle. And if you think about, your body has to take time to go through all of those stages. Likewise, your brain is trying to process everything that's happening, because for some women, that's where the screams come from. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? And everything else that comes with that.
Right.
Because your brain is trying to wrap its hand around the pleasure that you're feeling, because now they've hit the pleasure center. And so as your brain, male or female, has come to that point where you are at the height of ecstasy or pleasure in terms of feeling in your body, because remember, your breathing is increasing, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure is trying to do its own thing, and then the body starts to sweat because you start to vasodilate or open up the arteries to increase blood flow. So as you're doing all of those things, you don't want to have a bowel movement at that time, so you start shutting down other systems in your body. And so as the body comes into sync to be able to bring you to that place, whether it's through oral sex, it's through, missionary position sex, or touching, you know what I mean? Body kinesics, just the way people move around. Sometimes you can tell some things. People who have been together for a while, or people who are intensely getting to know each other, sometimes you can just do an eye movement, look at them a certain way. That person is in full arousal at that moment just by you looking at them a certain way, or you touching them a certain way. So, sex can be achieved in many, many different ways. Sometimes people have sex without really having sex, if that makes sense.
In other words, based on how you're defining it, it sounds that way. So you can people can use their eyes or their whatever expression they share together, which is normally secret from anyone else, and engage sexually without actually having sex.
Absolutely. And that's why a lot of women can be, open and confess to their partner that, believe it or not, I just experienced an orgasm because I was talking with you on the phone. And we weren't talking about sex per se, but just certain words of endearment that you were saying to me put me in a whole other place. And before I knew it, I was there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So
that's interesting. How does culture affect this? Because I'm assuming, based on the experiment that they were trying to do, that different cultures look at sex in different ways.
They do. I mean, some cultures, or even just religious beliefs can affect how people behave on a sexual level. So like, for example, Jewish people or even Muslims, the women, they're always covered up. You don't really see them exposing themselves, kind of the way a lot of quote-unquote black women would be kind of open to express themselves a little bit more in terms of their dress and show a little bit more flesh or skin. And so with these women, it takes a little bit more to get them to the same place in terms of their culture. When you look at the way they're, dealt with, or even Middle Eastern women, a lot of them will tell you, them to go through that process of engaging in sexual.
Okay, I think we have a question here, so we're going to go to the phone and say, good evening, thanks for joining us. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Dr. Melanie, you have a question for Dr. Melanie? I'm sure this show is a little X-rated, but...
Yeah, it's not really a question, but I just want to embrace what the doctor is saying.
Okay.
To say that's why the Bible says that if you look at a woman, and lust, for example, a married man should look at a woman and lust, then they commit adultery because they desire. You don't have to go to bed with the person ritually, but in your mind, you want to have that person, then you commit adultery.
Wow.
It's in the word. So she's right.
Well, I'm thinking while she's speaking, have I ever done that? No. No, as you are speaking and referencing the Bible, I'm going in my head, have I ever done what Dr. Melanie and the person on the phone is saying? No, I can't even think of that.
Do that. We all see an attractive man or an attractive woman and wish to have them. I mean, wonder how would it feel to give him a kiss or whatever. I like guys with muscles, sometimes when I see those guys with muscles, I wonder what they would feel like to get a beer hug or something. So we all as humans, we do love.
I don't know. I guess the level that Dr. Melanie is talking about, I can't. I'm trying to go back in my memory, and I just can't see that. I can't even remember anything like that. You know, yes, you see someone and you say, "Oh, that's a nice guy. Oh, he's so handsome," or something like that. But it's never connecting anywhere for me to get in as deep as Dr. Melanie was describing, and now you're describing it from the Bible that actually says yes, and I know the scripture states that. So now it's plain to people that you can actually commit adultery without actually touching the person.
Exactly.
Wow, that's deep. That is deep. As Oprah would say, that's an aha moment.
Yeah, that's an aha moment. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to keep on listening.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, because that was a good point to bring out. Yeah, the Bible actually tells you this.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for bringing that out. And Dr. Melanie, I guess you just explained it very, very well. So it is now plain to all the folks who are listening, wherever you are listening from around the world, whatever culture you are. And when you talk about Muslim women and Jewish women, it's true. They're always covered up. So there's no... And I think that's one of the reasons their religion actually make them do that, because they do not want other people to lust after them.
Correct. And
wow.
I mean, there's some religions that they will actually go on dates, but it's chaperone type of
Yes,
date.
the Jewish people do that. I saw a whole series on that, and actually I think it's a dating Jewish service that's in New York City, and they stated that if a young girl is going out with a guy, they have to go to like a park or a restaurant, and the chaperone is in the background, and they can, no hand holding, no touching, because they say if you touch, it can stimulate something, and then you might want to do something else. And I'm going, what?
And that's the truth. And that's why I say, when you have, for example, if you go on a date, when there are forms of endearment that are exchanged between that couple, then it's kind of like it starts to stimulate the mind. It doesn't mean that the end of that encounter or date might result in sexual intimacy, but just a certain way that the person looks at you or touches you or holds your hand or says something in your ear or whatever the case might be, or just certain looks with their eyes, it can actually draw you in. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. But think about going on a date.
It can actually make you aroused. How about that?
Yeah, and that's the reason why in many cases it's recommended that, if you're going on a lot of dates, sometimes it's recommended, many people might not agree with it, but sometimes it's recommended that you take a friend or something like that, because in some cases you may be able to account for yourself, but you can't necessarily account for what that other person's behavior might be. I'm not saying, please, radio audience, do not call, or TV audience, I should say, do not call thinking that we're saying everybody needs to go on a date with their friends.
Right.
In addition.
But isn't it group? No. But isn't group dating a little better for young people though? So they stay away because they're really not supposed to be having sex. Seriously,
it is easier, and I think it's safer because there has to be at least one person in that group, more than likely, who does not share the same idea of being sexually intimate like some of the other people in the group may feel that they're at that point where they're ready to engage in such behavior. Right. There's usually one or two people in that group that have kind of a different mindset and, set of morals that might say, this is not appropriate and I really don't want to be a part of this. Because what you find is a lot of people, in terms of children, they don't want to be called children, but in terms of children, a lot of these children have dates. These teenagers, they have dates and they have spin the bottle and all these games that they play, and people have to kiss and people have to do this and people have to do that, and before you know it,
something else is happening.
Yes.
So it's just like listening to the news yesterday, and they were talking about the cinnamon thing, how one teenager, I guess, tried doing a whole teaspoon of cinnamon dried without anything. And now they're having so many young people ending up in the hospital because they're trying this cinnamon thing. You know, and I thought to myself, wow, oh, so that's the reason they get in trouble with sexuality too, because they go out on dates, and just like you're saying, they get tempted, they start holding hands, they start, you know, doing what they're not supposed to be doing, and boom, you know, they end up, and then they go, I only did it one time, how come I'm pregnant?
That's it. Well, it's not even just, and I'm glad you touched on that about the pregnancy, because it's not just about getting pregnant. It's about, you know, STDs that you can get, and just kind of the mental, emotional trauma that can happen when that relationship goes sour or south, as some people call it. Because it doesn't mean that you're with this person today, you're going to be with them next week.
Amen.
Especially for young people, a lot of them have the feeling like, oh, I'm so in love. Some people, even at 30, don't know, you know, don't have a clue about what it means to really be in love. Some people, they're in lust and they're in like and they're in a whole other thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're in love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you know, it says love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. How many people are going to endure some of the things that some significant other that they have necessarily puts them through? So not everybody is really ready for that level of commitment, but yet a lot of people are ready for that level of sexual intimacy.
Okay. My special guest inside the Diana Wright Show, Dr. Melanie, and Dr. Melanie comes to us from the West Palm Beach Family Doctors Inc., and she's a general practitioner, a rare breed these days. And her number, if you'd like to call her and ask her a question that you can't ask on the air, 561-434-5678. That's 561-434-5678. And if you'd like to ask her a question here, live on the program, on the Diana Wright Show, you can give us a call at 561-228-1921. That's 561-228-1921. I want to kind of look at something that is quite sensitive. Women who have had hysterectomies or cancer survivors.
Okay.
Are those women enjoying sex or getting back to a place where they can actually have sex? In your, you know, as a doctor, seeing this happen, because I can just see a woman having a hysterectomy and feeling very insecure, feel like she's lost a part of herself, and a woman who's surviving cancer is going, I don't want to talk about anything else but my cancer right now. That's all I'm dealing with. I don't want to deal with no sex thing. You know, so I thought about it today and I wondered, how do people like those actually get back into the rhythm of having sexual relationships?
Well, if you think about somebody who's a cancer survivor, number one, if you're able to be sexually intimate with somebody that you care about, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it's highly encouraged. Because if you think about it, not many people these days will say, oh, I'm in remission for, you know, this extended period of time. So the fact that God has still given you breath and still given you life, you know, and you have the ability to share love and intimacy with somebody that you care about, it should be embraced. And, you know, in the case of a woman who's had a hysterectomy, yes, you know, it's a big change because now the uterus is missing. You know, if it's a total hysterectomy, the cervix is now also missing. So there's just what they call the vaginal cuff present. There's still blood supply going to that area. So you're still going to feel something, women, you know, in that sense. But one of the things is that sex drive may have changed. And having your sex drive change, you know, there's hormonal intervention that can be done. So in some cases, you know, some women start complaining about hot flashes because now you don't have that estrogen source, which is the uterus or the ovaries. And so a lot of women might say, you know, I don't really have that sex drive anymore. Well, that's where the men have to get very creative because now they have to start thinking of other ways to house this woman to get her to that place where she's going to want to engage in sexual intimacy. You know what I mean? So that's where the creative and imaginative aspect of the relationship has to be even more intensified, because you don't want somebody to not feel wanted, and neither does the person who's dealing with, you know, these two extremes of a situation wanting to not be embraced either. So she's going to have to give a little by being open and being honest about how she feels, and he's going to have to give, because he's going to have to be understanding and patient to work with her to help her get through this process. And at the end of the day, both people will get what they want.
Okay, both people get what they want. Don't forget that April 30th, next Tuesday, is International I Love Me Day, created and celebrated by the Diana Wright Show, and we encourage each and every one of you to love yourself. And I guess when you love yourself, that whole sex thing comes a little easier, maybe. And I was thinking, though, that a woman who has a mastectomy and loses her breast, which is one of the sensitive points for most women when it comes to sex, how have you ever had a patient who has to go through something like that? Because I think about people like those, like, even Debbie Wasserman Schultz, our congresswoman from Florida. She had a double mastectomy during the campaign for Barack Obama. And I just felt such empathy for her, knowing and wondering, how does she handle that? Because that's losing a part of your body, and a sensitive part of your body that affects, basically, I think a lot of women, affects their sexuality.
Right. Well, in the cases of patients that I've had who have had mastectomies, and some of them have got, they call reconstructive flaps.
Yes.
So that's using a part of your body as opposed to getting, like saline implants or something like that. Mm-hmm. A lot of these women, what you have to remember in many cases is...
Okay, Dr. Melanie, we're getting that ghost thing again.
Oh, is that better? Yeah,
no, we're still getting that ghost thing. I don't like that ghost thing. There you go. There's still a part of it that giving you that ghost face, and we don't want that. So we're going to try to get rid of that before we put you back on. A little more. There you go. We're back on with the no ghost. Okay, there you go. Continue.
Okay. So as I was saying previously, there are many, many women who, this is obviously a big deal to have a part of your body removed. Mm-hmm. And especially the breasts are very, very sensitive. When you think about it, especially if these women have had the opportunity to be natural mothers, so not adopting a child, they've had their own child and they've had from them and they've developed that bond. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to even imagine that this part of their body, has now been removed. But the flip side of that is it's a life-changing experience to think that you could have died because of this particular disease, which is breast cancer, but now you're a survivor. So, you kind of have to look at it from two different places, where you can say in one case, I feel really bad that a part of my body had to be taken away or had to be removed. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, I'm still alive, I still have life, and there's many other ways he can still please you, ladies, even with part of... I'm just saying, be creative. That's why you have an imagination.
Okay.
But you have to realize that it's not the end of the world.
Okay, so it's not the end of the world, and I'm just reaching out to women who I know go through mastectomies and lose their breasts, and a lot of women are so attached to their breasts. I'm serious. I've spoken to them. I even, on the Diana Wright Show that I did in Jamaica, I had actual survivors come on and show their, the thing that you talked about, that jelly thing in their breast. And it was like, a lot of them said it was like someone dying, basically, when they lost their breasts. So I just wondered, I'm always asking the question, so how do you deal with the sex thing now, And a lot of them just spoke about the same thing that you just said. There are other ways to enjoy yourself, and it takes a while. The partner has to be very understanding because, here you go, you're going through all of this. This is a process. It's a big thing in your life. And men, you just have to step up at that point, I guess. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sexual satisfaction as individual ages, because that's one of the things that the Kinsey Institute focused on. As you age, you mentioned earlier that men, when they age, they get more sexual, and women seem to do the reverse. Is that normal, or is that just the fact that women go through the menopause and all those other things?
Any decline in sexual desire is not normal.
Wow. It's not normal? Even with menopause?
No, it's not normal.
Oh, so we're all using it as an excuse.
No, a lot of people use that as an excuse. The desire should always be there. It doesn't mean that you have to engage in sexual intimacy all the time, but the desire is something that naturally comes from God. And like, a lot of patients say, if you're not dead, there's always hope. It doesn't mean because your husband has diabetes or he has high blood pressure, or he might have a limb missing, like a leg missing or something. It doesn't mean that you can't explore him sexually in other ways or he can't explore you. And I think that's what the problem is. People's minds are limited in many cases. They allow their minds to be limited. And because they've allowed their minds to be limited, there are many things that they have shut off their minds to. And so they'll go to their girlfriends and, oh my goodness, I cannot believe it, all the time, it's the same thing. Yet she's never expressed to him, well, I'm really shy about this or I'm really nervous about this, but what if, and you bring it to the table. Not because a waitress brings something to the table on the menu does it mean you have to order what's on the menu. But the fact is you have options. So she's bringing you options. And so you have to be open to say, I love this person. I care about this person. I want to please this individually, mentally and physically. And so what are some ways that I can do that?
Okay.
And that's where the commission has to remain open.
Open. All right. Open conversation. My special guest is Dr. Melanie. And we do this every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Not just about sex. We talk about other things too. Like next week I want to talk about infertility because a lot of women go through such a big downgrade, depression because they can't have a kid and all that kind of stuff. West Palm Beach Family Doctors Inc. and the number is 561-434-5678. That's 561-434-5678. We're almost out of time, but I'm gonna run this down that I found today, Dr. Melanie, and then you just kind of give me your thoughts as we go along here. Best and worst foods for sex life. Okay, so I was thinking about that since last Tuesday. Okay. Here we go. The best things to eat, strawberries. It's good for circulation. And then they have avocados, good with vitamin E and vitamin B6. Then they have almonds, has zinc, selenium, vitamin E, and it's good for sexual health. Now, almonds has that much power. Okay. Sweet potatoes gives you potassium, helps fight HBP, which is associated with erectile dysfunction.
High blood pressure, yeah.
Yes, sesame seeds, zinc, and good for sexual health. Okay, and watermelon, who knew? High in potentially libido boosting phytonutrients. Okay, and now when I read this, I'm going, okay, let's see now. I'm going to go out and get me some sweet potatoes, some almonds, and some strawberries. So, okay, let me hear what you have to say about that, and then I'll do the worst ones.
Oh, well, here's the creative thing. When you think about your eyes, visual, color, so color, texture, all of that is something that's stimulating to your eyesight, right?
Okay,
you
yes.
see a nice bunch of strawberries. That's so much more appealing than a bunch that looks like it should be in the garbage and it should not be on display for sale.
Okay.
So our eyes are very, very much our awareness point when it comes to sexual intimacy in general.
Right.
So strawberries, a lot of people when they want to create an intimate setting, they have wine, strawberries, or sparkling cider and strawberries, or whatever the case might be. But there's something about that sweet taste to strawberries that,
especially if it's dipped in chocolate now. Ooh.
And I was getting ready to talk about chocolate. But strawberries for a lot of men is very sensual because they said it has that nice soft texture to it. Of course the outside is a little bit rough, but when you really think about the strawberry, it has a nice soft texture to it. And some men say it reminds them the redness of a woman's lips.
Oh, that's what it is.
For a lot of men.
Okay.
And then with potatoes, it's very interesting because potatoes is a form of carbohydrates.
Right.
And carbohydrates provide energy, so it's kind of, brain food. So when you think about it, when you take in high levels of sugar, then you crash and burn really easily versus taking complex carbohydrates that'll give you energy over a sustained period. So that's kind of when I think of potatoes, kind of where that comes in. You talked about avocados. Well, I can't really comment on avocados.
Yeah, I just don't see how avocados fit in. I really couldn't imagine it.
But avocados, it's actually one of the foods that a lot of, these French countries and a lot of other countries are very excited about because it has a nice texture to it, especially if you get a very good avocado. A lot of people make guacamole with it and other dishes that they create.
Right.
But just the idea of me picking up avocado and saying this is what I'm going to do at the end of the day because I had some avocado, I'm not seeing it personally.
Me neither. Okay, so I'm not alone then. All right, go.
I don't know.
All right. Okay, watermelon, I don't know about watermelon either. But anyway.
Watermelon is a cooling fruit. So when you think of the hot summer and you have watermelon, it gives you that cooling sensation and also the hydration that it provides because juices, that you get from the watermelon. So in a lot of cases, I could kind of see how that would work for some people. And then the color, again, that bright red color, is very attractive, to the eyes.
Okay, all right. Or the worst ones are fatty foods like fried foods, fast foods, trans fats, and saturated fats, steak, high in saturated fat and cholesterol, but also provide protein and zinc and alcohol. Those are the only three. So,
Okay,
all right. Okay.
We spoke about before.
Yes.
But regarding the steak, okay, imagine you've gone out to eat and your stomach is extremely full. You're overly full. In your case, you're supposed to eat to be satisfied, not to be full, like you were saying you talked about with your daughter.
Yes.
But you kind of go back to that. If you've eaten too much, what are you going to want to do next?
Fall asleep.
And then you might be wanting to have some physical activity, but your body is saying something quite different. Not only that, just imagine somebody trying to be sexually intimate when their stomach is extremely full, of the food and the juice and the water and the ice cream and the dessert and everything else. And inside your stomach, there's like a jiggling kind of
jiggling effect.
I don't see how that on any level would be attractive for anyone to want to be intimate. I just don't see it. But there are people who do it. There are people who do it.
Yes, they do. Okay, well, thanks to Dr. Melanie for joining us again. Another great Tuesday, 8 o'clock hour on the Diana Wright Show. And next week we're going to talk about some other things. We're going to talk about infertility. I think it's a big thing. It's a thing that women just seem to struggle with so much. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more about divorces and stuff like that because one of the young women on Atlanta Housewives, she found out about getting a divorce on Twitter. And I thought to myself, I cried for her all day in my heart. I really did. I truly, truly did. Because I said to myself, I can just imagine. And she stated it because I saw it online. I wasn't up late enough to watch it on Nightline. But when she said that she was lying in her bed and
I think it was that contacted her.
Yes, and Twitter, she said Twitter was blowing up. Everybody was saying that her husband has filed for divorce. She got out the bed and she walked down the hallway because he was right there and said, "Oh, is this true?" And he goes, "Yeah, I filed March 22nd. You see, I even remember the date. That's how much. I hurt for her. I really did. Because I could not believe that anyone could do that to another human being.
And the thing that was even more interesting, and that's why I think you're a fly on my wall, Diana.
Oh, Jesus, not again.
And it's so fun. And I don't know why. I pulled the story online, and I opened up the page, and I started reading it. And I was so intensely focused on the page because I said to myself, it's very, very unfortunate. I mean, to be married for 2 years, and then they were talking about his son and her concern about, him being a father and being a husband and the vows that they took, and she got married for life, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People change. situations change, life happens, and divorce happens to many of us, but it doesn't mean that life doesn't go on. But one of the worst things that you can do to yourself and as an individual is, if the person does not desire to stay, or you don't desire to stay with that individual, is to keep yourself locked in that situation.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting to anyone to go out and just get divorced, but if you are not traveling down the same road and one is going east, one is going west, then obviously you're not going to be able to meet in the middle. And him not discussing with her that this was his intention or this is how he felt, I think he owed her that much at least to say, this is where I am not comfortable with this situation. And you know, she even was thinking to herself, you know, what about marriage counseling? And in his mind is already made up, so he's past the stage of even having intervention done, which is a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, we're gonna get deeper into this next week. Divorce. We're gonna talk about, there's a story here that I found that was quite funny, that a Saudi Arabian guy was expelled from a festival because they said he was too handsome and all the women would be attracted to him and start doing crazy things at the fair. And also, see how many things I had for you tonight? And then there's about male circumcision, how it is healthier for men. And then there was an Egyptian bride who had to pay her husband because she pretended as if she was a virgin and she wasn't. So lots of stuff for next Tuesday. That's just part of what I have on the menu for next Tuesday evening with Dr. Melanie. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great evening. And blessings. All right, take care.
Thank you. I look forward to coming on for Earth Day. That'll be exciting.
Okay, all right. Wasn't Earth Day yesterday? Or is it next Tuesday?
Sorry, Earth Day. My apology to our audience. Yes, Earth Day was yesterday. I meant to say I Love Me.
Oh, you mean the I Love Me Day? Yes. So it's going to be next Tuesday. We have to have the show, even though, you know, the other things happen on the 30th, but I won't even discuss that. International I Love Me Day is next Tuesday. So anything you want to talk about love, yourself mostly, that I'm trying to get you to do, is we're going to do that next week. But some of these things will come up, you know, in the hour that we're on here. We're on for much longer now. But anyway, it's okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Melanie, and have a great evening. All righty. Okay. All right. That was Dr. Melanie with us, and we thank her so much for joining us this week. And thank you for joining us from around the world and in the United States. We wish you well. We wish you blessings, and we hope that you will love yourself. You only have another week. I know you're going to get there. Yes, you are. Absolutely. You're going to get there because it's easy. I make it sound easy. You don't think it's easy, but it's 3 little words. I love me. And can I just leave you with that this evening? And know that if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it was never yours. So love yourself first. That's the most important thing. Then teach your children to love themselves. And see how great it's going to be for you. Don't forget that October 5 is another date that you need to keep in mind. That's a date that Save a Life Jamaica Foundation is allowing you to save a life for only $20. Extra $10 for food. And I know you can afford it. If you start saving your dollars right now, you will get there by October 5. All right. We'll tell you more about the event as we go along. So take care, have a good evening, a blessed one, and don't forget to get up in the morning and before you go to bed this evening, when you're lotioning your body and taking care of yourself, just look in the mirror and say 3 little words. It's so easy. I love me. Ciao, adios, and au revoir.